Thank you for attending the remainder of our lecture for week 2. Sorry I wasn't able to finish it all um, due to earlier presentation from our wonderful guest speaker. So here we go. Let's finish our thoughts on stakeholders and barriers and facilitators. So when we talk about barriers and facilitators on projects, it really does affect project success, project completion, making pretty much everyone's lives a little bit easier. The link to an example from RNAO website will be provided on the announcements. So when we're talking about barriers and facilitators, think about barriers as naysayers to your project, constraints, issues that people are giving you. And keep in mind, facilitators think of this almost like a cheerleader, uh, rooting you on, saying, yes, you can do this kind of thing. Barriers and facilitators are unique for every single project. However, there are certain commonalities. It's largely dependent on your organizational influences. And we talked about influences briefly, and I'm going to continue that in week 3. I'm going to give you a video on organizational influences that I want you to watch. I think it's only a 3-minute deal. And your project stakeholders, you're going to get some naysayers. You're going to get some people on your own team saying no. Um, I want you to think about when you've experienced some barriers, but also had the help of facilitators in projects, but also your work placement, where you're working now. I want you to just think about this because this ties into your discussion board number 1. The example that I'm talking about from the RNAO talks about barriers and facilitators. It's posted on the announcement, so please take a gander, and maybe you want to reference it. I don't know, in your discussion board. Highly recommended. Here's another example of barriers and facilitators. And there is a case study with the link here. This is in our slides here. This is from the Mental Health Commission of Canada. Think about the barriers and facilitators, but also constraints that were from this case study result, okay? Because this is on the psychological health and safety in the workplace. What do you notice when you're looking at this figure here? I know this is a bit of a mouthful here, but what might this tell you about potential barriers and facilitators? Think about, um, the various types of participating organizations like CCOHS. You remember this from our good old health and safety days. Remember Manulife Insurance? I kept talking about them. Um, do you think any of these organizations can be facilitators? When we talk about the government, some governments can be facilitators, some can be barriers to your projects. Things that create constraints and issues for your projects moving forward, sometimes political agendas. What about the union like Unifor? I would say they're probably facilitators, unless it's against a collective agreement or in the best interest of its members, right? They tend to be very much believers, in various types of um, accommodations, health and safety. But what happens if it goes against their philosophies? That could then be a barrier. So I want you to think about what you've encountered, but what you think of these organizations. Could they be facilitators or barriers to your projects? So I've talked about discussion forum number 1. It's worth 5%. It's individual. Um, this is a scenario where um, you're basically implementing a new healthy eating initiative for the employees. It could be any kind of corporate office, right? It could be Nestle's, it could be Royal Bank of Canada, it could be any organization. I want you to start thinking as a health and wellness manager and that you have a team reporting into you and that you've been hired by the head office, the corporate office, to implement a brand new healthy eating initiative. So I want you to identify who the project stakeholders are. How do you do that? How do you identify them? Well, we talked about project stakeholders. I've given you a couple videos in class, but you need to identify it. Could you do it through mind mapping, through brainstorming? Um, can you talk to a project manager who's implemented this? I want you to, think outside the box. One of the criteria I wanted was family, right? Think about when you implement this healthy eating initiative, how does that affect the employees, but how does it also affect their families? So I want to see that included. This is an individual discussion forum. I would like to see on Friday um, your initial post by noon and a response to a fellow student by the very latest on the 18th. Okay. So thank you for listening. I look forward to your individual discussion forum. And please cite reference Pittenbach, a video, an article, anything that will help support me understanding that you know what a stakeholder is. And here are all the lovely references, and maybe some of these might also be helpful for you for your discussion board. We've already discussed all these in class over the last couple of weeks. I look forward to seeing you in person. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.